very close to our hearts. And we want to inspire action by having this theatre. So we've been having so many conversations around DEI. And I feel like people have pretty good knowledge around what we need to do to be a bit more inclusive and accessible. But the gap is, how do we start actioning this? So this whole programme over the next 2 days is all about inspiring action, which is why I'm super delighted to have my first set of panellists here this morning who have all started their DEI journey, whether it's been a few years ago or a few months ago. They've got really interesting insights to share with you. I hope will be super inspiring, and they come from a variety of backgrounds, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves in a minute. The title of this panel is Diversity Hushing. What is diversity hushing? So if you've heard of kind of like greenwashing, that sort of slogan, green hushing is not sharing your sustainability goals, being a bit secretive about it, and DEI or diversity hushing is exactly the same. It's not sharing our DEI goals, it's not talking about what we're doing, partly because there might be a slight fear that we will be called out if we don't meet our targets, so we kind of don't want to share them in public, or we're not doing anything at all, or we've done a bit of diversity washing in the past where we have kind of tended to do some things around diversity, but they've not really been authentic. So those are often the reasons for diversity hushing.
Hi, I'm Sue Courtney. I'm the head of People and Culture at an agency called Interactive. I'm here at International Confex today talking about diversity hushing. The session's been incredibly interesting. The key takeaways for me is that the whole approach to diversity, equity and inclusion has to be embedded into the whole culture of an organisation and that whole employee life cycle from the recruitment stage, the onboarding stage, right the way through. And it really has to permeate through everything. So it's not something that you can do a policy about, put it on a shelf. It has to be part of your culture and who you are as an organisation. And it can be a scary journey to begin with, but it's certainly something that everyone needs to be really open about and embrace and then really embed into the culture of an organisation. And having someone like Diversity Alliance come on board and help us with that journey has been imperative, and we couldn't have done it without them really.
Hi, I'm Imogen Steinberg and I'm the venue manager at 10 to 11 Carlton House Terrace, a townhouse on the Mall. Today's session was really excellent. We had a really great question about how to start doing the work and feeling confused or worried about what to do. So at 10 to 11 we had similar worries when we first started doing our EDI work, but I feel like it's really an iterative process. So finding concrete actions that you can take now, and then also coming back to those actions, evaluating and seeing what the next actions are, can be really helpful to actually making change, rather than having spurious ideas or concepts that are difficult to nail down. And then having KPIs and goals that you can work towards to actually find out if you are making those and if you're coming up with the right things and moving forward, so that you always feel like you're doing something and that you don't get stagnated with the work that you're trying to do.
Hi, I'm Stacey and I'm here at Confex. My biggest takeaway from today's panel was share your findings within diversity. If you have key points that you're missing or things that you've done well within your own organisation or event, share the findings with the industry so that other people can learn from you.
Hello, I'm Laura Piper, Marketing and Communications Manager at Smile. I just spoke at Confex on the panel with the lovely Gabby, and my key takeaway from the session is, there's lots of good stuff happening in terms of DEI in the industry, and people should be more brave to share.
Path into the events industry, it wasn't a big lofty dream, it was really out of necessity, and that's because we as disabled people really struggle to get into work and stay in work. So at the age of 16 I had to apply for over 100 jobs And it wasn't until I removed any mention of my condition was I then offered an interview, and then I got a job. But that was for an entry-level part-time job that needed no qualifications. So that left me feeling pretty hopeless and worried about my future. And I thought, right, I have to go to university, because I felt like I had to have a degree to fall back on. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just chose event management because in my family, I'm always a person that plans the holidays, the parties, the get-togethers, and I thought I need to do something, I'll just choose that. But I didn't know that I was choosing a career that was so suited to my skill set, because I live in a world that isn't designed for me. I'm the height of a 4-year-old. So that means that from a really young age, I've always had to be creative. How do I reach my kitchen cupboards? I have to think outside of the box every day just to live, just to do basic things. But that's the exact skill set you need to work in this industry. You need to be creative, you need to know how to deal with crises and things like that.
Ryan, you work with 500 CEOs who have all committed to this, so they have a strategy around this, right? So you're working with these 500 companies, and they all have a D&I strategy, but we're not always seeing that at their events. I work for some really huge corporates, and I know they have a D&I strategy, but when I come to talking to their events people, there's no budget, there's no time, there's difficulties in delivery and all of that. So if someone signs up to the Valuable 500, what would you expect them to be doing around events, and what are they signing up to? And it should involve internal and external audiences, I'm assuming.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think the key to this is understanding that this is a CEO commitment. So the CEO has to provide their own wet signature. So if they're not committed to it, we're not going back to the rest of the teams within that organisation. We're going back to the leader of that organisation and asking the question why. And there are some great examples where, and I'm not just saying it because Shani's here, but Virgin Media O2, they have just recently, last year I attended a few of their events, and they were fully accessible, and they were really doing what good looks like. But I think what we have to understand, and I do, and I know Shani's going to agree with me on this one because we had a conversation last week about it. We're getting to a stage now where that whole line of everyone's on their own journey is sort of running out of time. And I think it's now more about what action, and so it's less talk, more action. So our latest thing that we're trying to drive is inclusion means action. You can talk a good talk, you can have it as part of your ESG, you can have it as part of your reporting, but what are you really doing? And I think what we're now doing is we are going back. And we're going back to organisations and we're asking those questions, we're highlighting, and we are asking people to leave. Now, we are the Valuable 500. We have more than 500. That was the campaign, so we have about 524. And we are asking now businesses to leave and depart from the Valuable 500 because they're not meeting the commitment that they promised to make. So I think by doing that, also as a commitment to ourselves, we want the spotlight on ourselves at the Valuable 500, so we don't speak on any panel unless it is fully accessible. We say no to quite a lot. You'd be surprised. The reason why a lot of people say no or then don't do it is because of budget. We can't afford to do that. We can't afford to do live captioning and all of that. And again, we then go back, and often the conversation is, so you penalise someone because of their disability. And how is that fair? Because I don't penalise anybody who doesn't have a disability to attend your event. And I think that's what we're trying to engage and get that. And the more we push back, the more that we kind of move forward with that, the better. So there is still some work, there's still a bit of groundwork, and it's a shock, I think, for some of our members because we got them onboarded, but now we've got to do due diligence to what we're trying to achieve.
Hi, my name is Meg and I work as Sustainability Manager at The Bull, and my key takeaway from today's session is that as event producers we create experiences. We have the opportunity to make everyone feel welcome.
My name is Paula Pearson and I am a founder director of two companies that are exhibiting today at Confex. One is My Clear Text, which is a specialist live delivery of captioning and other access services, and the other is Access Loop, which is a platform dedicated to delivering accessibility simply and cost effectively to hybrid and virtual events. For anyone who needs it, I'm going to audio describe myself. I'm a woman, a white woman in her very early 50s. I'm wearing very oversized glasses. I have silver grey hair and a quiff, and I've got very red lipstick. My one key takeaway for people today is get your budget together, get it earlier on. When you're budgeting in your graphics, your cameras, your presentations and your speakers, you budget for accessibility at the same time. Treat it like it's part of the show. Make it just as excellent as every other part of your show, and you will get a huge audience for that excellence and for that accessibility.
So my name's Ryan Curtis Johnson. I'm Director of Comms at the Valuable 500. A description on myself: I'm a white male, mid-30s with medium length brown hair with brown eyes. I'm wearing a tan suit with a white vest underneath, and I've got 2 gold chains on around my neck. I've just done a panel talking about DE&I in making events accessible. I think one of the key takeaways was it's not good enough to just talk the talk. Inclusion means action, and we want to see action. So I think that's the takeaway.
I'm Shani Janda. I'm a South Asian woman who experiences disability, and I work with lots of different businesses and brands as an inclusion and accessibility consultant. And I also used to be an event manager, so I understand the industry inside out. My one takeaway from the panel is the point that I shared, that accessibility benefits everybody, because when you remove barriers for disabled people, you can extend that solution to everybody. But it's also the law. So don't break the law, and it's going to be cheaper for you to invest in accessibility than pay out for lawsuits later.
First point on making sure we thought that everyone was coming, we had to change the venue to suit everyone coming. So we installed an additional ramp to allow for wheelchair access and to allow for that space, and placing that in the venue, and then making sure that everything that we had in there was accessible. Now, not all your events are going to have that type of budget, and it is about exploring venues that are accessible, but even in modern venues, making sure that they're truly accessible is just something that we can all do, just going through those steps to make sure that even if they have wheelchair access, are all wheelchairs accommodated for, and those little steps that we can take. So then it's about signage. What are your signs saying, and who are they speaking to? We worked with a company that organised Braille for us on the signage. We make sure that all of our signage is accessible, so large fonts, Arial, white backgrounds on the signage. It doesn't always look amazing for when you're looking to try and do and make an event look perfectly designed, but that is making sure that it's inclusive, and that's the main point there. So all of those little touches to make sure that every single sign that we had a free version. So it had the really nice design version, it had the accessible version, and it had a Braille version as well, to make sure that all of our signs were speaking to anyone that could be attending our event.
Hi, I'm David O'Geest, founder of Nobody's Cafe. We're an experiential brand experience collective. So today I've been talking at Confex regarding diversity and inclusion in action, regarding one of the events that we put together. And I think the main takeaway from that was really just about how we as event professionals can make the industry more inclusive, not just internally but externally for the people that we have at our events as well. So that's the key thing that I've been talking about.
We did things like sign language masterclasses. We had guide dogs come in, and people got to meet dogs, which they loved, but also learned some really valuable lessons in the background. And then we also had a really interesting thing called an autism awareness caravan. So you kind of went in and you had this experience, and you kind of had an idea of then what it might be like for somebody with autism. And people came out of those sessions, and it was really interesting to see their reactions. So we used to do that for our staff, but also, as I'm sure a lot of you maybe have volunteers that work with you, we ensured that was part of their role-specific training for the Games. So making sure that they understood the ambitions and the objectives of the Games around accessibility, so they could fully buy into our messages too.
Well, so from my perspective, what I was keen to bring to this today is to think not just about the big events, but also everyday workplaces. So we might have networking events, you might send colleagues on training. That is an event, even just a meeting or a breakfast briefing in your workplace. And you might not have somebody who's got, you know, our level of expertise in accessibility. And the worst thing you can do is shy away from it, because there's nothing more embarrassing than somebody turning up and can't be included. So we just wanted to give some tips today to just, even if you haven't got, you know, a dedicated person who's the expert, what questions to ask. And from a legal perspective as well, we have to make sure that people aren't treated less favourably.
I'm Emma Ord. I was speaking today at the 5 Top Tips for Accessibility with lessons learned from the Commonwealth Games talk. It was really great to see so many people at the talk today, people really engaged and looking to make a positive change for accessibility.
Hi, I'm Sarah Reddy and I'm an accessibility specialist. If I was to give you one top tip to make your events more accessible, it would be to just ask attendees a very simple question. What can I do to make this event accessible and comfortable for you? And that's so much better than saying what reasonable adjustments can we make, because people, it doesn't matter what they label themselves as or identify, comfortable could be anything, just to make people feel less anxious, something very simple. So just ask the question and people will tell you.
But whether they're talking to working up to me about symptoms or what it is and how I'll respond, it hasn't happened yet.
Okay, I'm going to put it to you. There's a thing called imposter syndrome. It's like fake it till you make it. Sometimes there's this thing going on where we're like fronting us all, yeah, great, and actually beneath it we're like, help. So just be aware that sometimes there's this, you know, female thing. Am I right? Am I don't know. I'm not speaking out of turn. They're all nodding.
There's kind of a stat around the fact that 25% of women that experience menopause consider leaving their roles. To what was Jill saying earlier about us losing good talent and people not putting themselves forward for things like mentoring programs and possibly new jobs and things like that based on what they're experiencing. I think that's a really interesting point, that it becomes so much that if you know, for you Jill, if you weren't able to come to Confex because you hadn't had that conversation with yourself, said I can do this, that could impact your employment as somebody that's self-employed. And I think that's where it's really interesting in this kind of environment. I think we've got some businesses that have a responsibility to support people, and we've talked about policies and being an ally, but as an individual working in the industry, it's again a bit more challenging, because you've got to have that boundary with yourself and work out what's right for you.
Hi, my name's Jill Hawkins and I'm a director at Annecy PR. I'm a freelance writer in the events industry and PR consultant. I've just sat on the shush about talking about the menopause panel, and I think the one thing I'd like people to take away from this is to talk about it. I'm very vocal about speaking about my experience, and I think to get through this we need to talk, we need to share our experiences, we need to educate people, we've got to start the conversation. So good luck.
Hello there, my name's Tim Sparrow. I'm the General Manager of the East Side Rooms in Birmingham. My main takeaway from the menopause session earlier on was that in order to attract and retain some really good talent, we need to come up with some good policy, good ideas, so we can openly talk about the menopause within the business. It'd be a travesty to lose really good people for that reason.
And from authentic conversations. And again, I am doing a session here at Confex on my own. I will, next time, I hope that there's more sessions with the next generation, with us young people who are driving the conversation on the different sessions that we're going to be having here today. So whether that's a panel, whether that's young people representing here at the exhibitors, whatever that is, there needs to be that authenticity sort of piece.
So we have just finished our sessions at the People and Culture Theatre, and wow, seriously impactful. Fantastic speakers sharing some truth bombs, some home truths, but also some really nice insights and tips as well. All about inspiring action within our workplaces and within the events industry. This theatre is the bomb.